Okay, guys, pensions, dividends, and retirement. Something that we spoke about pensions for a while, but we're going to dive into dividends a bit more and how they relate to your retirement. I mean, Jim, firstly, what do we need to know? Pensions and dividends.
This is a real eye opener, and I tell you what, I've got facts that'll blow your head. It's like
Yeah.
I cannot believe it. Here's a fact. 1 in 6 pensioners are actually in poverty.
That's a
One in
scary
six.
yeah.
And yet most people sitting listening to this or watching this or whatever they're doing at this point in time. Some people might be lying on a beach. It's like, well, what are you listening to this for?
You've already made it.
But I would be if it was me.
Yeah.
But that's quite a frightening fact. 1 in 6 pensioners are actually living in poverty, and that could end up being you if you don't take action on what we're about to say. This is a really good one. I want to talk about as well through this, and we'll understand this. But a 50% increase in value, followed by a 50% reduction in value, followed by a 50% increase in value, followed by a 50% reduction in value, is not zero growth.
Okay.
Did you know
How,
that?
how
See,
is that then? Go and
you
explain that.
automatically think it's zero growth, don't you?
You would think
And
you're
this is
too fast.
how pension companies manipulate their figures to make you think that you're actually maybe earning a bit more than what you are earning in actual reality. I'll give you an example and I'll walk you through this. 50% increase from £1,000 is 1,500.
Okay.
A 50% decrease is £750.
Ah, see, right,
A
yeah.
50% increase is 1,125. A 50% decrease is £562.50. With these 4 movements there, you have lost 43.75% of your investment initially. See how that works?
Yeah.
That's exactly how pension companies do it, some of them. This is why maybe about 80 to 90% of pensions actually don't perform at all. So, but for people that have got pensions, which is more or less everybody now because of workplace pensions, you should be checking out all the things that we're about to talk about here on your pension and just making sure it is actually what it is. Now, I'll let you understand, I am not a financial advisor.
Yeah.
This is just stuff I've known and I've picked up because I've investigated my own stuff and actually reading the right books, like Mastering Money by Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real eye opener, especially that net zero growth thing. That just blew my mind. I could not believe it when I thought about that. And then how you could end up losing, I don't know, probably about 30% of your pension at the end, all because the management fees, the admin fees that the pension
On the
company
back end,
charge
yeah.
every single year are actually more than what they should be charging.
And there'll be a
30% of your
lot.
pension.
There'll be a lot of people that are in that situation and didn't even realise it.
A 1% difference could mean $300,000 loss.
Mm-hmm.
Just a 1%. How many pension companies are charging 1% more than what they should be charging? That's exactly what it is, and I'll run you through these numbers. But this is a real eye opener. So just hold tight, and we'll talk about this. Richard, go and kick us off and say what you want to talk about and what you want to go into.
Yeah, I mean, pensions we've covered numerous times. We are going to delve into them again today. But I thought dividends as well. Dividends is something that we don't talk a lot about. And do you know, the word dividend to some people might be a wee bit, mysterious, kind of alien. What is a dividend? But it is quite a simple thing. I mean, you invest your money into a company or a set of companies or a group of companies, and these companies hopefully pay you a share of their profits if they're a profitable company. Obviously, you're going to do your research before you invest into a company, so you're going to get a return on that. And that dividend that comes through, that dividends are quite tax efficient, just like your pension can be if you work it correctly. But your tax you pay on your dividend is different from what you would pay, say, on your salary at the end of the month. So dividends are a really good way and a tax efficient way, coupled with your pension, to go towards your retirement.
I think dividends are actually a brilliant thing just now. I am seriously considering at this point in time, and I'd said it in last week's show or the week before or whenever that was in a previous show, that when you take dividends are taxed at 8.75% just now. No national insurance on them, by the way, so far. or the higher rate, which is I think 37 point odds. You can look it up yourself when you're a high rate taxpayer. That's how much dividends are taxed there. But there's no national insurance. If you take your retirement income, there's no national insurance. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, no,
because
yeah.
there's a plan on the horizon to try and make that different from the up and coming budget, or this might you might be watching this after it, and then well, it actually happened, or it maybe didn't happen. But just be aware of that. Pensions are different as well. Pensions, if you take now, I think we could all agree that at some point in time, tax is going to continue to go up and up and up and up. So if your pension is taxable, your income, therefore, the pension that you take now at a lower rate tax is actually more beneficial than the pension that you possibly take later on, which is you're paying a higher rate of tax on it, because we're all going to get taxed more and more and more to pay off this huge amount of debt that the governments have actually accumulated over since COVID and since the credit crunch and since everything else that's come after it, and since the inadequate, financial management. For want of a better phrase. I think everybody understands that now. It's a complete shit show. I was going to say it. So I'm seriously thinking about just saying, I tell you what, I'll leave dividends in my company, and I'll leave them there because they'll probably still be more tax efficient. Whereas I think they're going to go for a pensions raid. So having a pension later on could be less tax efficient, if that makes sense. But you have to weigh that up with the fact that what have you got it in, and how will that pension grow?
And how's it been invested? Yeah,
because if you start spending it now and you've got a pension that grows at 10% every single year, it's like the opportunity loss is 10% every single year compounded on the money that you're taking out now.
Yeah.
Whereas dividend is like, well, you're only paying 8.75% tax on it. So you probably would go for the dividend and leave the pension there, because then the tax wouldn't be as much, potentially. You've got to think about that, though, and the loss. So it would be the extra tax you'd pay, and it'd be the loss you'd have to build into that to understand whether you should actually use your pension now or leave it till later. Hopefully that makes sense to a lot of people. I'll say that again. You would benchmark it on, if I drew it down now, how much would I have in my hand, versus if I drew it down later on at a certain taxation level, say taxation had gone up to maybe 25% taxation. If I drew out of that, what would I get later on? But then you'd also have to work out the amount that you drew down between that period and the 10% growth on that amount that you drew down to add on to that later on as a loss against that. So then, your growth would be the 10% up, and then the taxation would be the money you would receive less, but the growth that you'd lose as well would have to be factored in as well. Make sense?
Yeah.
Opportunity loss.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I'm looking at because obviously I've got notes and you were quoting figures there, and mine are slightly different, but mine's are taken for a wee while ago, so that's why. It's fine. It was just about the taxpayers, because I've got taxpayers paying 7.5% on dividends, and then the higher rate taxpayers are 32.5%. But if I look at
that was changed recently.
I've pulled these from a couple of years ago. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's where the reference
this is that's the problem with AI, Richard.
I knew you would be right now.
That's the problem with AI, Richard.
Yes.
Think about that. Think about that.
Yeah.
Listen, people, that's the problem with AI. AI is only a collective summation of what we all know already, which is on the internet. It is not it's not a self-thinking for itself. It's not a sentient being. It actually just brings together what's already in the ether and actually comes up with that answer. So if you go on and say what was the dividend amounts and all the rest of it, it could give you something from all that from 3 years ago.
Which does say that 2023, but you're right. It does demonstrate. And a lot of people take what they get from Google and AI as gospel. And in real time, it might not be accurate. So be careful of that, definitely.
Yeah, so you've got to double check where that fact is. It's like everything. It's like even in Google searches previously in historical purposes, I knew what the answer was. I think I knew what the answer was. But then I would check and it was like, wait a minute, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
That is not the answer. And then it would be like, it's the HMRC from 2022. the consultation paper or something like that, and it's like, wait a minute, but that's been updated since then.
Yeah,
But that's all it gives you when you do a Google search. The other one isn't available, where it doesn't come up in that search. Therefore, everybody can automatically, a lot of people will automatically think that that's right when it's actually not right at all. So that's the fundamental difference, I would say. That's the difficulty that comes out of that. So be very, very wary and careful of AI and what the answers are, and always do just a wee double check just to make sure. Because then when you think about it, if you're thinking there's about 1,000 different answers to this question, AI comes up with one answer, then your job is then to say, you know, that answer they've got is, can I disprove that, or is that actually the proof? Before you actually go on publicly and say to everybody on Facebook and social media, this is the answer, and you're like, no, that is English legislation, especially with housing law, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to watch for that. And that just shows you as well, it's always good to have somebody really knowledgeable in a certain field to be able to go back to and check and fact check things, and not just pull things from on the internet or whatever.
Because loads of people out there going, you're wrong. There's loads of fact checkers, trolls out there saying you're wrong. I didn't get that, why somebody does that. I just don't get it. You come out with something that's really nice and really positive and forward thinking, and someone has to put something shitty on as a remark about it and pull it down. And it's like, if you want to do that, go and do it on your own page in your own time. Don't rain on somebody else's parade, is the expression.
Yeah. Social media and things is such a great thing, but that's full of people just want to tear things down. But we digress.
So let's talk about then what we're talking. Let's get back to what you were talking about.
Yeah. So we're looking at obviously pensions and dividends and the relationship together and obviously individually. And I was just we're going through what an actual dividend is in case people were a wee bit confused. Dividends can be a wee bit confusing sometimes, even for some experienced investors and things. Sometimes if they're featured in a retirement plan and things, it can get a wee bit away from you if you're not too sure what you're doing with them. So again, speak to the right people and who can explain it to you properly.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do that.
I can explain what a dividend is.
Yes.
A dividend is typically what is left to distribute to the shareholders after all the expenses have been taken off the revenue.
Covered, yeah.
That's the profit. But it might not be the whole lot of the profit, because some of the profit have to be kept aside to be reinvested back in the business. That's the case. So the shareholders are typically the last people in line before after everyone else is paid for what they're doing. And dividends are not a tax deduction. The profit is taxed in full first, and then dividends are distributed to the shareholders, and then even the shareholders have to pay dividend tax, on their dividend itself. So when people think, when I talk about 8.75 as the dividend taxation on a personal person, what you don't realise though is it's 25% of that is actually off beforehand in corporation tax.
Yeah, with the company, yeah.
So what's happening there is really it's the true tax on that dividend or on that profit. It was there. You're now getting in your hand is 33.75 before it actually, when it gets to you finally. It just so happens the company's paying a 25% tax beforehand, or whatever the corporation tax is rate for that company, and then the individual is paying the tax when they get it distributed to them. You can leave it where it is, and therefore, obviously, you're saving 8.75, but I've got a funny feeling dividend tax is going to go up as well.
Yeah, I think inevitably, well, along with everything else.
Well, the thing about there is talk about national insurance. Let's just cover that about national insurance on unearned income. See how that's done? Unearned income. So national insurance could end up being put on dividends. It could end up being put on property. It could end up also being put on pensioners. Sorry?
Really?
Aye, on pensions. Yeah. So they'll have to pay national insurance on pensions.
On the pension, yeah. So then,
See
each
how
when you say national insurance and dividends, so would that only be like you say you've at the moment you're thinking, right, my dividend, I'll just leave it where it is rather than pay the 8.7.
Yeah, then you wouldn't need to pay national insurance on it until you drew
Right,
it.
it's only once you then you draw it, right? Okay.
So it's only a distribution, and that's why you probably want to do the, other sources of income first and leave that in the company, because if you don't really need it, there's no point in drawing it out. If you do need it, if you don't really need it as well, there is a thought process. Well, we'll get to dividends. We could talk about dividends now, before we talk about pensions. Yeah, let's talk about dividends first. When we get to when we talk about dividends, you could think about the fact that you can get that distribution out, but if you don't need to get that distribution out, you could leave it where it is and not be taxed on it individually. But if you think it's worth it, you could actually, and again, dividends could be going up in tax. The tax rate could be going up. So if you take out up to the basic rate level just now,
Okay.
which is over and above your personal allowance. If you're taking your personal allowance, your 12,500 or whatever it is at the time, you're probably about 37,700 to get you up to the basic rate as a basic rate taxpayer. And then what you can do is, if you don't need it, you can just put it back into the company as a director's loan. So the company still gets the benefit, but it's got the tax off it. But then you've taxed the money. So therefore, in 5-6 years' time, if dividend tax does go up, then the money's taxed already, but the company's still using it.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can take it back out in 5 or 6 years' time as a loan, as your loan getting paid back, and there's no tax on it. You could even put a director's loan and actually put you could put a loan interest on it. You could actually have an agreement with the company that you're going to loan it back to the company at a certain interest rate.
Yeah. Okay. And if you take that out, obviously, pay the tax, put it back in as a director's loan. If they were to change the way things and start charging national insurance, then that wouldn't get.
No, it wouldn't, because it's been taken out already in tax previously. So it's just like you are. So these are all tax efficient ways to actually take money out and then put it back in, or leave it in completely, or take money out and have more money in your hand, rather than actually taking out via PAYE route. Because if you take it out by PAYE route, pay as you earn, which is normal run of the mill employees
salary and wages,
then you're getting tax off. You're taking national insurance off as well, or before you get it. So as a private person, you're getting whacked for that, where the company is getting the benefit of the tax relief on the money they're paying you. So what's happening is they're transferring the tax that the company would pay to you as a personal burden. What dividends does is it keeps the taxation on the company, and you keep more in your hand this time.
Yeah.
See how that works?
Yeah.
So if you pay yourself £50,000 through your company as a PAYE, you're going to get, when you get that in your hand, 50 grand, then you're effectively getting your national insurance, which is, I think it's round about, I'll say 12%. And then plus the, taxation, let's just say if you're a basic rate payer, you're probably 21%. So you're 33%. So you're 33% off, but you've also got your personal pension to pay off for that as well. So you're another, maybe, 5% or something like that to come off. So you're up at 38%. So if you're getting 50 grand, then you're 38%, and we're just guessing. We're doing rough cuts here. Times 0.62, then you're left with 31,000 in your hand, which is effectively 2,583 a month in your hand. Okay. Now, if you take it out via dividends, right, the company is paying the corporation tax, but you're now getting 50 grand out via dividends. So what you've done is you could do it like this, very smart, which is you take out your personal allowance. There's a small amount of national insurance for employers, but not I don't think as a personal person. So you take out your personal allowance, which is 12,750, from the company as a pay. You're no longer, you've not got any tax on it at all. So you take that out, so you've got 12,750 or whatever that is, ballpark. And then 37,700 at 0.0875 is 37,700 times 0.0875 is 3,298. Just say 3,300 for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So you've got 50 grand out now, and you've got 3,050 grand minus 3,300 It's 46,700 divided by 12. You're now getting 3,891 in your hand.
That's a fair jump.
Your marginal
Yeah.
tax rate has dropped to about 6% personally, as opposed to 38%.
Yeah. See, and that's where it demonstrates to know these things, or have a knowledge of these things, or think to ask people how to work around things efficiently like that.
That's how you take it out. That's how you take your money out in a more tax efficient route. To have it's about. I mean, you're still. Let's be honest. There's people out there at this point in time getting their torches and their
Because they'll
pitchforks
think
ready,
that's tax evasion,
you know,
but it's
lighting their
not.
torches and like get the pitchfork. Where's my pitchfork, love? Get it from the cupboard. It's like that's what they'll be doing now, but it's not like that at all. Remember, the money that person's got in their hand, it's the marginal tax rate of 6%, has already been taxed by 25%.
It's already been
Whereas
taxed for the company.
the money you've got in your hand is actually the employer's benefited by the 25% deduction, and you're having to pay it. So what's happened is, as an employee, you're having to take the 25% hit off of your salary, whereas as an owner and a shareholder, you're actually transferring most of the taxation on that money to the company, and you're getting more in your hand.
Yeah. So the tax is always getting paid, just in a different way.
The taxes. This is why they go on about the rich. It's like, oh, they're hardly paying any tax. Yeah, but their companies are actually paying a bloody fortune. It's like they're paying more than you'll ever do in your whole life.
And this is where it could come in really useful as well. I mean, there will be a lot of small businesses up and down the country that are limited companies, and they'll not. I don't think the directors and things won't realise the benefits of dividends and how to utilise them, and like you say, get the utilise them most tax efficiently.
I think it's a lot to do with a lot of people need the money now. But remember, as a company owner, you can take dividends out every month if you want.
But why would you do that?
Because that's your salary. Because that's why most company owners, because they've not got a salary, so they have to live. So they can just pay themselves a dividend every single month.
I suppose if you're in that kind of situation, yeah.
Yeah, so they just do it like that instead. But if you've got a very small company and you need your cash flow, it's like, oh, that's a bit risky. But you're still having to take a salary out. So you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So you could just do it every single month. Whereas I was taught it's like you do it once a year, you declare the dividend.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you don't need to. You can do it every month if you want. You're the owner, you're the shareholder, so you can decide anything you want. The board of directors, you're the director as well. You're chief cook and bottle washer. You can do whatever you damn well please.
It's funny that though, because you see, obviously, you were like taught and obviously always like on an annual basis, and you've obviously like I learned that from you as well. So that's how I thought that's the best way to do it. When you say monthly, I'm like, why would you do that?
Only if you're using it as your income to survive on. So that's effectively how most owners will do that in terms of it. But a lot don't understand how to do that, or it can be done. They don't realise that. I mean, you've got a personal allowance of dividend, which is like, I think it's like 500 quid now. It used to be £10,000 a year. So you were getting your 12.5 and you were getting 10 grand as an allowance. And then you were getting, so you were really well off. And you can see there where you've got that at 7.5%. It's gone up to 8.75.
Yeah.
But I think it was at 5% at one point. So it was even, and it was at another point, there was no tax on dividends at all.
That must have been a long time ago.
Happy days, honestly. I remember when it was changed. Obviously, they put taxation out, but a lot of pensions actually suffered as well. I think it was George Osborne that put it in. And because it was dividends of pension dividends as well, taxation of a pension dividend. So see how they raided pensions as well by the back door. They took taxation off of pension dividends, which used to be tax free. So pensions suffered again. It doesn't matter what you do, you'll get nailed to the wall with tax. I don't think people realise that and how that works. It will happen every single time. It's the classic example about As soon as the government taxes a business or they tax a landlord or anyone like that, they're really taxing the member of the public, because the landlord and the business has to pass it on.
It comes through the tenant, yeah.
Yeah, because they're having to pay more tax, therefore they've got less income, therefore they'll have to go and earn more income to be able to survive. Therefore, it gets passed on to the indirectly to the actual tenant or the person buying the product
consumer,
or the service.
The consumer,
Yeah, it's the same thing as a retailer in a supermarket. You know, your oranges go up by 10 pence. It's like, okay, I'm going to pass on to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So if your tax goes up by 10%, guess what? Your rent's going up to pay for it. And they talk about greedy landlords, but it's not.
It's the same in every industry. It's the same across the board.
It's not. It's the fact that the landlord's got no choice but to pass it on because they can't afford to absorb it. They're not being greedy. It's the government is being greedy by taking off the person at the end. So it's a form of the government doing indirect taxation. This is classic. What is it? Dickensian economics, I think it is, or socialist economics, where they actually it works on the way that they don't do direct taxation; they do loads of indirect taxation. That's what starts to happen. Like your fuel duty goes up, or your duty on something else that you don't know you're paying for, sugar tax or something like that. You know, just to bring money in. Road tax goes up. That's all kind of indirect taxation on your money. VAT goes up. These are all different things that happen. So dividends is actually quite a tax efficient way to do that. Yeah. Let's talk about. So dividends, before we go into pensions, because we're about to go into pensions. Payments from a company's profits to shareholders, but they have been taxed that profit already. So as I said before, it's not as if shareholders are getting away with a low rate tax. They're just getting more money in their hand, and it's the company that's paying the burden of the tax for them. It's flexible access. You can receive dividend income as soon as possible, I would say. It's got huge benefits as well. And so I think dividends is a really good route, but they're going to catch up at some point in time. What's your thoughts on this, Richard?
Yeah, I think mainly for the dividend thing, it's the tax benefit for me, and obviously the tax benefits of doing the dividend, especially within a limited company. And I think it was just basically and I knew you would have lots of great insights. That's why obviously I chose to kind of go into that first, because as I said, there'll be a lot of people out there that don't really understand that, and they're running limited companies and they've got this opportunity to be a lot more tax efficient and within their company.
Okay, so let's now jump onto pensions. What is your understanding of pensions, Richard?
So obviously there is a difference between pensions and dividends, and it's important to have that basic understanding of pensions. And you know, I didn't have a great understanding of pensions, even if you just go like a few years back. You know, this is something I really thought about a lot. To be fair, doing this show, you made me really become quite privy to that, and I know you've got quite a good insight into pensions. And I mean, in summary, a pension is an income which you receive once you're then in retirement. Now, we're not going to stipulate an age for retirement here, but at that point, I mean, you're thinking, Britain just now it's 57. Is that right?
57 it is now. I mean, I'm drawn. I could draw now, and I have drawn the tax-free amount.
Yeah, you see that. Yeah.
But it stops it. If you can draw your tax-free amount, and as long as you don't draw any of the taxable amount of your pension, you can still put up to £60,000 a year and actually get the tax and everything advantages still. You know, so that still applies. Nobody knows that really, and that's one of the things I think the benefit I've learned. I never knew anything about pensions until maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, when I started to research how I was able to do it and how I was able to make it tax efficient, and in terms of how I was getting income, how I was making income, how I was like, there's no way that pension is going to exist when I retire. And if I'm not a millionaire by the time I retire, I deserve everything I get. So I deserve all the heartache and all the losses and all the rest of it, and the fact that you've not done anything, you're a total loser, Jim, and all the rest of it. That's kind of how I looked at
You
it.
beat yourself up too much, though.
Well, it's the fact that I knew I had potential when I was in my 20s to do what I was doing, and I understood where I was going, and I knew on paper that this made absolute sense in buy-to-let and property and all the rest of it before anybody else knew about buy-to-let and property, and I worked it all out, and I thought this is completely logical. Obviously, life gets in the road, but it will work if you work it. And I went hell for leather, and I was determined, and I built everything I built to that point for that very reason. And that's why I said, you've got the opportunity of a lifetime. There's nothing standing in your way except you and your thoughts. You have to go for it. And if you don't go for it, you deserve to lose everything if that's the case. You don't deserve anything if you've got this opportunity and you don't take it. And that's how I looked at it. So I didn't have a pension at all. It was just it was okay. It was with the companies that I worked with. So I just kind of banded them all together, and the money I got over time, and then started putting them in a proper fund, with Standard Life, a UK equities fund, and that continued to grow over time with that money I was getting for nothing really. And then I started using it as a vehicle because I would start to be a higher rate payer. I was saying, I tell you what, I mean, I was getting the money whether I liked it or no, so I thought I'm not paying full tax on it. So I put the majority into my pension. It brought me down just under the high rate tax threshold to the low rate tax, and therefore I was able to get that benefit of the tax advantage from my tax return of the 40% to 20 to lower rate, and then I was also to get the tax back contribution to the pension contribution that I was putting into my fund as well. So that's how I did it.
Just to clarify, obviously, like thinking of your pension as your income in your retirement, it could come from several different places. You mentioned the state pension there. Now, whether that's going to be around even when I retire, I don't think so. And that's why they brought in workplace pensions as well, which most of you, if you're working in a company, will have a workplace pension. But there's also private pensions, like you said, the UK and equities through Standard Life and things.
You could see the writing is on the wall. Because that's why they put workplace pensions in place. They didn't actually say it, but they literally by the back door said, we're not going to be able to maintain this anymore. We're going to have to pass the burden on to the employers and the employees to provide for themselves, and we're going to have to make it mandatory. It's funny how they don't do that for their own public workers, isn't it?
They
give them all defined benefit pensions, which are far more lucrative than defined contribution, which is what we all get as employees in the private sector. The private sector pay for the public sector, and the public sector have more benefit than the private sector. So we're paying to have people better off than us with our taxes. I don't get that.
It's nonsensical.
McFly, that does not compute with me. So that has to change fundamentally at some point in time. There's going to have to be some party that's going to bite the bullet. It'll probably never be the Labour Party, because they're locked into the unions, which will not allow that to happen, and they're members or something like that of their party, and they have votes. So there's no way that policy is ever going to get through to do that.
No, this is why rush to the side.
You can't keep giving people money. You can't keep spending more money in an economy than you're actually generating from the private sector, because that's where all the money is generated from. It's not generated from the public sector. They don't produce anything. They just do stuff and spend money. That's it. You're not paying for a service in the public sector. They're providing a service. So I'm not getting a public sector workers, by the way. They're providing a service. It has to be done. But it's delusional to think that we can do that. Most private people actually are paid less than what the public service people are paid. Think about that one. So pensions are a classic example. So this is the income. It comes from different sources. Another one, pensions. It's property. This is a good one, a really good statistics. If anybody wants to know this. Did you know that only 4% of landlords are actually dependent on their property income? The other 96% are full-time workers, pensioners, or doing something else. They do not rely on the income.
I mean, 9 times out of 10 when I'm dealing with, but it's, it's part of they're thinking of the retirement, but,
Yeah.
but they're still working. Monday to
So
Friday.
where is this misconception of only 4% rely on their income? The landlords are actually rolling in it.
Yeah,
It's
I would actually, I could only think of a handful of landlords off the top of my head, even if that do it as a full time, like that's their job, that's what they live on and things. The rest of them, like you said, it's their side hustle to their 9 to 5 job, and it's just help them in retirement.
It's part of their pension provision because
Yeah.
they don't want to be one of the 1 in 6 pensioners that are actually in poverty.
In poverty, yeah.
It's going to be more later on, I would say. By the way, don't wait to buy property. Buy property and wait.
That's a good one.
So don't wait to buy the property and wait. That's where you make your money. And you service the debt and the responsibilities with the rent that you receive, and reinvest it back in the stock and the business. Yeah. That's what you do, just like you do with any investment fund. It is an investment fund. And yes, landlords do work as well. Now, there's a lot of rubbish for the government to say that landlords they don't do anything for it. Of course they do. They have to go and look at the property. They don't just say, you've got to go and look at the property, and then you've got to go and get contractors to quote for it. Then you've got to appoint a managing agent if you want a managing agent to do it. You've got to pay them as well.
Yeah, or even if
you've got to go and get a mortgage, you've got to go and find the money. You've got to go and invest your own capital.
You're the one taking the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet, they don't work. Of course they do. And then some have to do their own management, so they do all the cleans and the changeovers and everything like that. So this is a total misconception. It's just by the people are basically trolls. They just want to castigate them all the time. But coming back to pensions, it's an income you receive from retirement. If you want to draw it down, depends. The more you leave it, the better it gets. Just let me give you an understanding of the more you leave it, the better it gets. By the way, you can take out a pension for a child from birth, and they will get the tax benefit of the contributions that you make as a mum and dad or gran and grandfather for that child. You will get the benefit of the tax deductions or the tax back for that child because they have an allowance from birth as well. Essentially, in a weird way, you'd have to prove obviously what they're doing, but you could actually put your children from birth onto your payroll if you run a company. Yeah, and you can pay them every single time if they're doing something.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you could justify that they're contributing.
Well, they've got a personal allowance of 12,570 or something like that. It doesn't. You get it from birth. So hence the reason why the government gives you that tax allowance as a result. So, but let me share my screen and I'll show you what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
Hopefully people have got this. So here we are. I love this compound calculator. So this gives you an idea of what's going on here. Right now, you can at this point invest 2,880 every single year into a pension for a child, and the government will top it up to 3,600.
3,600, yeah.
The government will give you £720 for nothing extra into that pension. So 2,880 times 50, because we'll just do it 50 years from birth.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we should just do it 55, shouldn't we? Times 2,880. 2,880 times 55 equals. So you're going to invest a principal sum of £158,400. That's 55 years times 2,880. But the government is putting 720 on top of that. So really, this is 3,600 every year. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do a 3% increase. We're going to do yearly. This goes up by 3%. We're going to do over 55 years, and then we're going to put in 3,600 every year as well, because we're doing the 2,880. Remember, it's not 3,600 we're putting in, but it will, because the government gives the contribution towards it. This has to be yearly. Okay. So after 55 years, 3,660, but 2,880 does. That pension at 3% growth will be worth, for a child, when they retire, 508,000. That's no bad, considering you've only put 158,400 in.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah.
Watch what happens. It goes from 5.8. We'll put it at 5%. Sorry, is that $1 million? It is. It doubled. Wait a minute. The interest rate did not double there. It went from 3 to 5.
5, yeah.
And now it's gone up to $1 million. That's mental. Now, remember, at this point in time, you've still only put £158,000 in over 55 years. We should actually be in 57 now, shouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I tell a lie, it should be 57 because it's 57 years now from birth to get a pension. Okay, so 1,100, 1.1 million, and if it was 3%, it would have been. See, there's all the calculations there.
Yeah.
It would have been 546. So basically, you're getting double your money for just another couple of percentage points on it. Imagine if that then goes up to, some pension funds. I've seen some pension funds claim that they're doing 10%, or even your own fund, possibly, because you might have your own. You might have a SIP, which you can invest a SIP means self-invest pension, personal pension. So you can invest in commercial property, you can invest in stocks and shares, you can do things like that with a SIP with your own pension if you've got it in there. Or you might have a SAS, which is a selective investment, which is actually tied to your company, and it's for company directors, a SAS. So it means you can invest up to 50% of the fund in a project that you're working on short term. And then what you can do is then once you've got that, you pay it back, and then you can remortgage. You can refinance the property. If you're refurbing a property, you could do that with the SAS, your SAS, and then you can put it back in your SAS with a return on investment for it, and it's all tax free, remember. And then you could use it to build your property empire. So you could do it like that by borrowing from a SAS to your company. Again, there's costs associated with that, and we will come to that.
Yeah.
But imagine if that 1.1 million at 5% was now 10%. You would think it would go up to 2.2 million, eh?
Yeah, like kind of double.
Yeah. You would think so. It would go up to 2.2 million. But let's hit the button and see where we go. Sorry, 9 million.
So, I never expected it to go that high there, actually, to be fair.
9
I thought I was going to come back to about 4 or 5.
I'll say that again. 9 million. That is mental, Richard. £9 million.
That's crazy. That's a lot of money.
I that just blows me away. In terms of seeing that, you could effectively earn £9 million just because it's gone. It's just an interest rate. So this is why it's important to understand where that is. Now, let me just explain to you. I'm going to do a real weird thing here.
Okay.
In your pension fund, what you have to realize at this point in time in your pension fund, what you have to realize is there's charges that get charged every single year. Now, for me with Standard Life, I was on 1%. Okay, that's a charge, 1. And that's probably normal, typical. Now I've gone to a flexible drawdown, same pension, it's now 0.6%, so it's gone down now. My charge every year. But some pension companies are still charging 2 and 3% every year on the fund. And this is a small print you've got to check with your pension. You need to check with your pension at what you're getting charged with your fees. You need to make sure, and I'll show you why. Here we go here. Let's look at this pension and what happened here. Now, this is just, this is 158,000. That's it. And you'd get 9 million if it grew by 10%. 9 million, 158,000 that has gone up to 9 million after 57 years. Happy days.
Yeah.
Maybe that's with the price of a penny dainty and what it is today. Your 10p sweetie is now 9 million to buy in 57 years' time. That's why if inflation erodes in the sweetie. See how inflation erodes as well.
Yeah.
Think about that. If you were doing this inflation and inflation was 10% every year, what was costing you 158,000 is now costing 9 million at 10% inflation every year. That's how it eats into inflation. That's why they don't want inflation. That's why they want savings. But what happens here is you've got 9 million there, okay? And if your pension company is no charging 1%, but they're charging 2%, then that would really be 9%, wouldn't it? Because you're only getting 9% return on investment now, rather than somebody that's getting a 10% return with a 1% admin fee. You're getting 2% against 10%. Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
So if comparison to them, you're actually paying an extra percentage, so you're losing an extra percentage, so you're only getting 9 in yours. So that 9 million, just with that calculation, because you've got higher admin fees, will now come to,
just for
I'm
that,
not kidding.
And that's because they've got the percentage, the fee on there from you.
You've lost 3 million because they've charged 1% more over 57 years at a 9%, at that 10% increase.
And if you were in that situation, you probably wouldn't even be none the wiser to that.
You thought at this point in time, anybody, including myself, would have thought, yeah, it's only 1% a year, which is 36 quid of the initial investment. And if I times that by 57, I'm only losing £2,000. But you're not. You're losing 1% on the whole fund every year.
Not just what you're paying.
Yeah. So the 5 million, if this was to go another year, you're losing 1% of that 5 million because they're charging 1% more. So effectively, that 5 million times 0.01, you're losing £50,000 just because they're charging another percentage.
Yeah, 50 grand.
Yeah, this is why it's so. I still can't get over that. That 9 million. Oh my God. Yeah. Imagine if it fund. Now I'll tell you, you can get property funds that do that. You can do that yourself with your own property fund and earn that amount.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I've done it.
That's dependent on something that's obviously got a return of 10%.
Yeah, but that's easy. I've done that.
Yeah.
So that's my point. You have to watch out for the admin fees. What are you getting charged? A lot of people go to financial advisors and they're getting charged for a financial advice, but then the financial advisor gets them to take out a policy and gets an income out of that policy every single time they put money in. And you have to watch out for that. You really want a financial advisor who's going to charge you a one-off fee and that's it. You don't want ongoing costs, ongoing fees, because that's where they're making an absolute fortune out of you. And you don't know anything about that at all. You also want to make sure you've got your direct with the person actually trading, because if they're trading like 3 down or something like that, which in betweeners, they're all taking a cut before it gets to you. It's like the property sourcers. You know, one property sourcer starts out and sources a property and goes, "Oh, I'm going to charge a fee of 3,000 quid." And then another property sourcer sees that person's property and says, "Oh, I might have a client for that." And he says to his client, "I've got to charge you 5 grand." Because he's got to pay 3 grand to the other boy and keep 2 grand for himself. And then that other boy goes, someone sees that person's property source from the other person, and they go, "Oh, well, I've got to charge a source fee of £7,000 now, because I've got to pay the 3,000 to that boy, the 2,000 to that boy, and I've got to make 2 grand for myself." And by the time you know it, by the time you get it, you're paying 7 grand, but you're paying for everybody else's admin fees.
All the way down the line,
And that's effectively what you could be doing in your pension. So it's important to make sure that you check your admin fees are in par around the 1% at least. 1% has got to be where it is.
Yeah. When you start to enter the realms of 2 and 3 and 4, and you know, it's like
they could, and you'd also want a fund. It's maybe an index fund. We proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, and we'll go back to that, and I'll run it now, and I'll show you. For example, I'll show you on here. We'll bring that up again, that screen. We'll share you and talk about index funds, because it's important to include it in here as well. So we've got the compound calculator. We've done that. So let's go and look for the FTSE. FTSE 100. If you just put in a standard in, well, let's look at Bank of England first.
Okay.
Bank of England inflation calculator. Here we go. Bank of England inflation calculator. Here we are here. Now, inflation's sitting at 3.8% just now. But if we take £1 and we say over the last, I don't know, 5 years, we'll take it. So the cost in 2025. 5 years ago is 2020. Show that now. So 28% has gone up. See that?
Okay. Yeah.
So £1 5 years ago is now
£1.28
£1.28 to buy the same services. So inflation is really 28%. So we take that 28% 5 years from now, 5 years, and it could be the next 5 years as well. You never know. So let's take the FTSE to see how that got. This is how index funds are probably the best thing to invest in. So what has the FTSE done in 5 years? You've got wee calculators there. Look, 5 years. There you go. So 63.52%. It's just changed. 63.51%. There you go. Let's talk about live, eh?
Yeah.
So it's just gone down slightly. It's changed again. So it's gone back up to 63.53%. See that? How the FTSE works. But over a period of time, see that from last 5 years, how it's climbed.
Yeah.
Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, for people, there would be some people that sold there and then ended up buying there. There'll be some people that it sold here and end up having to buy back there. So they lose money on their pension. So you've got to watch out for that as well in pensions, because pension funds actually are an average of the whole fund and how it performs. It's not your fund that they're telling you. They're saying that's what this fund's how it's performed, not how yours is performed. Because I benchmarked mine against my pension and it was a lot less, which I thought was a bit weird. And I thought, that's weird. Why is that? And it's because they're benchmarking theirs, but they're not benchmarking where you buy and sell or where you're buying it or where you're putting more money in. They're not doing that.
That clearly demonstrates obviously an increase over a long period of time, but it peaked and troughs throughout. So it's picking the right time to, you know.
Yeah. Well, actually, I made more money than the pension actually because I got the tax relief and everything on it. So that was money for nothing for me. So when you look at that, 63%. Now, if you go to the standard S&P, S&P 500, which is a well-known one, do a 5-year benchmark. Look, 94% as opposed to 28% inflation. If you look on the NASDAQ over 5 years, 114% as opposed to 28% inflation. So see how a low-cost index fund over a long period of time could actually be more beneficial than getting involved with somebody who makes trades every single day. A trader in shares. Oh, I'll get you the best fund because I'm an active investor. I'll be able to get a fund from there and a fund from there. But what you don't realize is they're paying admin fees every single time that they're trading.
They're pulling things out and things and trading.
You're not really necessarily doing that in general with an index fund because they're just picking it and keeping a hold of it. That's it. It doesn't need to change really because it's the same fund as the index fund every single time. It's like having the same shares in a company. You're not trading these shares. You're actually just got the same shares. And it's the company and what they're doing is doing all the work and doing all the costs. All you've got is the shares. That's how that works. And that's why index funds have outperformed more or less every single share trader ever. Index funds, the most boring shit you'll ever get.
But it pays well.
But it pays well. Absolutely. In comparison to everything else, in comparison to these people that think they're going to, I invest in all these technology stocks and I'll do all this for you and I'll do all that for you, but I'll charge you a fortune every single year for it, for doing it. And you see how the admin fees and the fortune they're charging and what you're losing out on. I still can't believe that was 3 million. That's mental. Just because of 1%.
Yeah, and like that was a big chunk.
But importantly as well, let's come back to that pension fund that we said. When you look at a child's pension fund, look at what they're retiring with. It's only 158,000 we're putting in over 57 years. So if you're only putting that in, I mean, it's nothing in comparison. They're coming out with $1,500,000. They're coming out with at 3% about 500,000 or 600,000, and at 10% they're coming out with 9 million. So it could be anywhere in between. But I tell you what, it'll be better than what the provision for the
Better
government.
than anything that's going to be provided by
Yeah.
governments.
Yeah. I mean, your employer's one will be fine now, but if you leave your employer and you've still got it, it's like, I would seriously check it out. I would check it out if you were your employer's pension anyway, and I'd check out what their fees are and what the admin fees are and as well. And I'd just make sure you've got it in the right fund, because for most employers, it's just like a hassle. They're just like, oh, we've just chosen a fund and that'll do.
Mm-hmm.
Their business isn't about providing a pension for people. Their business is actually operating in the retail sector, and their services sector, and their product sector. That's their business. It's not providing a pension and prevention.
Yeah, and in most cases, the pensions now, the workplace pensions, because they have to. They've not got any other choice.
They just want to tick a box.
Yeah.
They just want to tick a box. So that's why you've got to be more prudent for yourself and more investigative for yourself, and just make sure that with your own pension provider you've got, because you've all got access to your own pension provider anyway through your employer. But you can go direct to them and just say your pension provider that, what are the fees. But there should be a thing that you get told anyway what their fees are actually taking off. Yeah, you should. I don't have a company pension. Everybody goes, really? It's like, no.
I've got one for our company. I've got one.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and that's provision by the law. But I opted out because I'm not remotely interested in it. Oh, but you can get 2%. They were saying, I'm not interested in 2%. It's like, I'm interested in the dividend.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in the 2%.
Let's just quickly about pensions. Obviously, there's different ways when you get to that point from drawing out your pension. You could do obviously drawdown. You could do annuity and things. What's the difference between them, and is there one beneficial more than the other, or
drawdown? Drawdown is you decide how much you draw down every single year, just like I've done.
So the money stays invested, and you take so much.
What it is they put it to wherever you want, your full value, your pension. I've got a flexible drawdown. I've still kept it in UK equities where it is, because it was a really good fund that still perform, and I'm still believing UK equities anyway. And I've got no intention of really drawing it down at all. So I would rather just keep it there. But it's the tax element that I've left there, the taxable element that I've left there in that, and it's lower cost fees for the same thing. And I've managed to get the tax-free element out, which I can invest in property, which will make even more money than what my pension could make from it. That doesn't mean to say you just go for property on its own. For most people, remember, I'm a Monte Carlo or bust person, and I don't think there's ever going to be a point that I'm going to lose it all. I could do a fire sale tomorrow and still come out with millions. If anybody knows what a fire sale is, it's like sell everything at rock bottom value, like half the price, and still come out all right. So I'm no worried about that at all, really. So it doesn't bother me. So a drawdown is you draw it down as you want it from your own fund, and eventually it'll run out. An annuity is different. It's a special type of financial product provided by the pension company, but they're taking the risk. What they're saying is, if you give me your pension, I will give you a guaranteed amount every single year, and I'm going to index it every single year, so you're going to get a wee bit extra to take into account inflation until you die. But once you die, I am taking the lot. So they're gambling with you. You're basically putting all on red and hope it doesn't come up black. Because then in that situation, if you go early, they win, and they win big, because they've got all your fund now. But you could actually have an annuity which has a guaranteed maybe half the pension goes to your spouse. Yeah, it could go to your spouse, or they might have a death and benefit where it's like you've got an insurance policy attached to it. Maybe worst case scenario, if you go early and they win, but they'll still pay out 100,000 to your children on your estate. That's the sort of thing. I mean, you obviously go to a financial advisor to ask about that, or do more research yourself about pensions and how that works. But broad brush, that's how an annuity kind of works. They're taking a risk. You can also get, and I'm reading about it now, so we will cover it in other shows, about the fact that you can get a guaranteed no lose pension. That is weird.
No, just
It's like,
I've never heard of one.
sorry,
Yeah, so.
guaranteed never to lose. How is that possible? So even though you're getting paid out, you still get, or your beneficiaries get, the initial income you put in.
How could they do that, though? You'll need to.
It's possible. It's possible. It's based on. It's possible. It's based on. It's maybe a classic example about how some people do. They take a landlord's property and they say, "I'll take it. I'll pay you 400 a month, but I can make 900 a month." Yeah, and it's like you're always getting 400 a month. You're always getting 400 a month, come hell or high water, and I take the risk I might not get the 900 every single month.
Yeah,
but I'm using your property, and that's possibly what they're doing.
Right,
I think that's in essence what they're doing. They're doing it.
That makes more sense to me now, but still, I'm a wee bit skeptical about that.
So that's another one to do it. So there's all different ways you can do this, but primarily, hopefully, that's given everybody an insight into pensions, dividends, and potential retirement.
Yes.
I'll leave you with this. Okay. As I said, 1 in 6 people are pensioners are in poverty right now. You need to take something out. If you've got grandkids or just born or something like that, the best thing you could ever do is get a pension set up for them and just put minimal amounts of anything. You could see that compounding how it does it for them. 57 years worth, remember, just a minimal. So you put 1,000 quid in 50 years' time. It's like let's just do this. 1,000 quid in 50 years' time and see in 57 years' time. So let's just go back to our compound calculator. And we'll do that again, and then we'll do 1,000 quid.
Yeah.
At maybe, I don't know, 8%, because that's roughly what some of them do on over 57 years, and you're putting nothing in monthly. And let's just see how 57 years 1,000 quid will do. 80 grand.
80,000. You can't grumble.
You just put £1,000 at the very beginning, and they'll get 80 grand when they retire.
Yeah.
All because of that. And then if everybody else is putting a wee bit amount in, maybe birthday money and all the rest of it, put 250 quid in a year, just in birthday money and stuff like that, that goes up to 328,000. 250 quid on top of that every year.
Without a lot of effort or expense, you could have them set up for later in life when you're not going to be here. So, you know, if you've got children and things, you could kind of have that in your mind that like that's okay, they'll be fine.
It's the best thing you could ever do for your children or your grandchildren right now is actually to look into something like that. There will be other ways and products like LISAs and ISAs and all the rest of it coming out.
Yeah.
I know they're available. I know there are different tax routes and efficient tax efficient routes as well. So look into them as well. But the key is do something.
Yeah.
Time is something you do not have.
I know. Yeah.
That second that we just had is gone.
Passes very quickly.
So is that one. So is that one. So is that one. So is that one. You'll never get it back. And if you'd invested in property 50 years ago, your return on investment would be at 8,000% by now. 8,000%. Inflation was 1,400 over these years. And you'd be earning rent on it as well.
The income, yeah.
That's why, as far as I'm concerned, property is probably the best investment vehicle you could ever have.
Brilliant. I think what we'll demonstrate clearly there, Jim, today is that, do you know, knowledge is kind of is power. Do you know, if you've got a pension, check the terms of your pension. What are you being charged? Do you know, what is the terms and conditions of that? If you've got a limited company and you don't know about dividends, build on your knowledge, speak to somebody who knows what they're talking about. There's a lot of tax benefits there as well. That was a really good show. I hope everybody got something from that. I certainly did. Thanks for sharing all that, Jim. And we'll catch you next week as usual, Monday, 12:30.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Jim. Bye.